Well, good morning and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Ed with Professor Chris. We're still trying to get you all the information. Students, you asked for it. It's my pleasure. I'm going to get it. I told you I would do my best to see if we can get our special guest today. We are going to be talking to the president of the college, Dr. Ross.
Hey, Chris. Good to see you.
Welcome. Good to see you. Great to see you.
Appreciate you having me.
Thank you for taking the time.
Absolutely.
All
Anytime.
right. So usually the very first question I ask all the people that I interview is, tell me a little bit about your journey, how it started, but most importantly, did you see yourself here while you were in college?
No, never did. Didn't really think that far ahead, and my career's been a little more, some might say, or some have said before, serendipitous than planned out. So when I was in college, actually, I had an experience in college that sort of influenced my passions, and then I just kind of followed my passions, which are what led me here. But when I was in college, I worked in a little manufacturing facility in a town called Mount Airy, North Carolina. And then after college, I had a chance to take a year and study abroad in Japan in a special business program. And while I was in Japan, I toured a number of manufacturing facilities, and this was during the late 80s. And it was a time when everybody talked about Japan, the robotics, the automation that was going on. So I saw these places where people were doing things, programming robots and things like that, and as opposed to what I had been doing in my little manufacturing facility, which was all hand type work. So I became fascinated with that, and over a period of time, several jobs that were sort of at this nexus between technology and what now we call more workforce development. Didn't really have that term back then, and how those things come together to help people move forward. And that's what led me to community colleges.
Okay, all right. So we got to go back a little bit. When you finished that, did you ever go to the classroom? Were you an instructor in the classroom? How did?
No.
Okay.
What happened after that? So I knew what was fascinating to me was this transition, because I kind of grew up in a period, right before computers, where you really, like when I was in high school, we didn't really use computers. And when I got to college, you didn't even own your own computer. You went to the library to use the computer. So we were going through this period of, the initial phase of computerization. And what was happening, I saw with manufacturing was kind of a similar thing. So I just became fascinated about that. I didn't know what kind of job that would mean. So I went to a PhD program. It was in a unique field called industrial psychology. And the reason I did that is because I went to the University of Maryland, because there were certain professors there that were studying aspects of either technology or people, but combining the two. And so I wanted to study under them. And I taught, the whole time I was at University of Maryland. I taught statistics. I taught a variety of, mostly statistics courses at the University of Maryland, and then came back to North Carolina. Well, no, then I had this kind of fortunate break where the Department of Labor was looking for someone to focus on technology from a people side. And one of my advisors recommended me, and that kind of led to a series of my first couple of jobs before coming back to North Carolina. So when I came back to North Carolina, I then was very involved in the whole workforce development aspects of what we do here.
That's great. So I've always told my students, and I miss the classroom. I've always kind of figured that once I was in the classroom, I took a director's position, I took a department head position. It's still within the school system, but I felt like the more up I was going, the more removed I was from my students. So I do really miss the classroom. Yeah. I was very, very fortunate. Ironically, during COVID, that I had to step in to help one of my professors, and I was like, great, I really miss the classroom. So I say that to ask you the same question. Do you miss the classroom?
Yeah, I miss connections with students, so I was in the classroom during the earlier stages of my career, and I did also, my first time I was president, I've been president now of 3 colleges in a system.
I was going to ask you that.
So the first time I was president, right, I tried to teach my
right.
first 2 years. I did teach my first 2 years, but it was, truthfully, I wasn't as good a teacher as I needed to be because of all the other responsibilities I had. So, and plus my wife said if I kept that up, she might leave me. I had to take but at some point I want to do that again. Now, I'll tell you a similar, though, feeling to you is I was the state system president for 7 years. So before I was at Wake Tech, I was president of another college, but before that, I was president of the state system of community colleges, all 58. And I said at that time, I appreciated doing that, but I only wanted to do that for a shorter period of time because it pulled me away from the campuses and it pulled me away from the students. And I would often say that, I always called the students the heroes in the hallways. And the more the hallways are very different at the state level when you're doing the state system. It's more like being the league commissioner. And so at that point, when I left to become president of NOVA, I did so because I always said coming in, I will be here for a period of time, but at some point I go back to a college because there's just nothing like being at a community college.
Right. Okay. So here are the two questions that the students usually ask. The first one is, what does the college president do?
It depends on the day, really. So, I would say at least a lot of my time is things that are, well, I was talking about this to somebody yesterday. They were talking about how do you spend your time. So I would say probably about 40% of my time is dealing in external community type things that are related to the college. Our college has a big role in the community, which is a lot of it's around workforce opportunities. So I will be meeting with at least one or sometimes two companies a day about, programs or connections or partnerships. We are always planning for the future. So sometimes that deals with multiple different types of strategies, sometimes about, today we're talking a little bit about, future in terms of buildings and things like that. Sometimes it's very programmatic. A lot of times it depends on the time of the year. Okay. So, this is the busiest time of the year, going right up to graduation. So I'll have a lot of stuff. And then June, July, it kind of, it calms down just as it does for everybody else. And then you pick back up in August and you just go, so a lot of times there are things on campus that I'll go to, I need to be at. There are meetings in the community. So like we'll have a president's meeting this week. I'll go to the Cary Chamber where all the elected officials will be. We'll have, this is the second podcast I do today. Right. So there, every day is a little different and no 2 days are ever the same.
Okay. The second question is, what should I study in college if I want to become a college president?
You shouldn't study anything to be a college president. There is no route to being that. And, again, I never planned what that would be. I think the thing about being a college president is, you go where your passions are, and that's the thing I always, that's an easy thing to say when you've done that. But when you follow your passion, your work does not just become a job and work. It is something that's more to than that. And I say, find your passion. Right. And for many people, you may find that passion is community college. Right. And if so, you may find yourself in that type of role. But I used to work with a lot of colleges when I was state president who were hiring community college presidents. And sometimes the folks you want to be more careful about are those who, at a very young age said, I want to be this position, right. And I think sometimes the best at the job of being a college president or whatever are not those who started plotting it out 25 years ago, right. But it just kind of emerged because of their passions for what they did. And that's what happened to me. I never plotted out to be anything, and honestly, I worried about it a lot when I was a kid because what I chose to do, it wasn't like being a job that, okay, here's the 5 steps to this. Right. I wasn't sure how you even made money in what I was interested in when I was young. Actually, a quick story. I went to the University of North Carolina as an undergraduate.
Okay. Which one?
University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill, okay.
I was in the same graduating class as Michael Jordan at the time.
Nice.
And the head basketball coach at that time was a man named Dean Smith. And one time I just happened to have a 5-minute interaction with Dean Smith, and I shared with him, I was kind of concerned because my interest, I wasn't sure what that would mean in terms of a job someday. And I still remember he looked at me and said, you do what you're passionate about and that will work out for you. And that meant a lot to me. In fact, I keep his picture on my desk just to remember that, you do want to think about, what sets you, you set up your own luck, right? So you want to be thinking that, but you don't want to obsess about it. So, just put yourself in a position where you're doing what you love. It does help if what you love is actually a job, so you can make a living, but you don't have to figure it out all at once. And give people, but whatever you do, put everything you have into it, and people will take notice of you and your opportunities will come. I think that's what happens for a lot of folks.
Sounds great. So you got to help me convince our students that you're a regular, normal person. What do you do for fun?
Well, I'm a boring person, so no, I am very normal. But I have a family. I've got 3 boys at home right now, or not at home, 2 are one's in college, one's at work. So we like doing things with them, although they've kind of gotten to an age where it's not the same as it was a few years ago when they were all around. I don't look like it, but on the weekends, I'm probably more of a weekend warrior because I don't really get a lot of exercise during the week. I typically, most nights I'll have a dinner. I'm just as likely to have breakfast or dinner meetings as I am to be at home. So I don't really have time for that. So you'll see me on Saturdays running with my 2 dogs at North Campus. So I'll be running around North Campus. If you ever see a little dog in a big blue pit, that's me running around the campus. I love to read. I always have like 3 books going at one time. I'm a huge sports fan, so I go sports. I'm a terrible golfer, but I enjoy being on a golf course. So, anything that's active like that. My wife and I enjoy being with friends in the community. So, I'm pretty normal when it comes to that.
So I must admit, the students do know you. They just haven't probably interacted with you because they've seen you at events. And I really commend you I know every event that students are having, you're there, so they see you.
I try to get there.
No, that's great. That's great. I've had my fair share of different presidents at different colleges, and I have to share this one story with you, how important it is for students with presidents. This was, I'm not going to mention the name, back when I just started. One of my students on graduation day was so disappointed that the president, unfortunately, wasn't feeling well and was not going to be at graduation to shake their hands. And they were so disappointed because, and I said, but you've seen the president. Like, no, I haven't seen the president for years. This is my day to get that picture, to frame it up, right? So I'm sure you relate to that. And that's just one example of how close students feel like they need to be with their presidents.
Yeah,
but I always say, they're busy, right? But I try to make all the excuses. But like in your case, you are always out there. And I really commend you.
Well, I appreciate
for doing
that. Sometimes I feel a little guilty because I go to events and because I want to go to events. That's the kind of stuff I love. Sure. And sometimes it'll happen like, I like going to our sports events, and so I'll go to a game and someone will say, well, thanks for coming to the game. And I'm not at the game because, I feel like I need to be at the game, but because I enjoy being around that. That's the part of it I enjoy the most. Now, it's very difficult for me sometimes because we have 6 campuses, we have 70,000 students. So it's not as if we were a small campus of 3,000 students where you could almost have an interaction with everybody. So that's a little bit challenging, but the interactions with the students is what I love the most of this job. And I try to, every week they'll tell me what's going on. Like last week, there was a small little event on campus, on the North Campus, which was with our science faculty related to a pollinator for creating a new bee garden on campus, and there weren't a lot of students there, but that's fine. Just having, that's the kind of stuff I love doing, and I try to schedule them in when I can do those things.
No, that's great. So we're getting very close to an amazing interview here today. The other question students always want to know is, when I have an issue, because you hear students say, I'm going to go talk to the president, right? And I hear that all the time. And I say, I'm not trying to prevent you from going to talk to the president. One, he's very busy, and there's protocols in which to follow. But you, on the other hand, you've made provisions for how students can reach you. Like, I'm surprised when students are like, oh yeah, I sent Dr. Ross an email, and I go, well, nothing against that, but do realize that there are people you can send it to. So I'm trying to make sure.
And you also have to watch, because there may be things that they want me to take care of that I really can't take care of, because it's not something I'm, or it's something that, if it's about a class, it may be that I've got a problem with this class, but there is a department head and a dean and chief academic officer, and so they're the best ones to address those types of things. If it's an issue on campus, I don't mind. There can always be things that I can help navigate. Sometimes it's kind of rare that there's something that I can resolve on my own. The way it works. I think if people have any kind of issues, about the college that they don't feel comfortable expressing to someone. We're very fortunate the way we have this set up, where we have an ombudsman, where anybody, students or faculty and staff can go to the ombudsman and keep it private, and he can kind of, if there's things that he needs to let us know about. That's another way, which I think has been very helpful at the college. So there's different ways, and truthfully, because we're so big, there always is something that somebody's concerned and somewhat upset about, and we just have. People, I tend to be, I think people say, pretty approachable. Sometimes people have said I'm overly approachable. I don't know if that's the case or not, but, I have no problem people sending me things they want to be looked into, but rarely will I be the one who can resolve it, because it's an issue that I just, technically someone else has has the capability to actually figure out, can it be solved or not.
I'm happy you did clear that, because when I'm talking to students about the right channels to go to, they either think I'm trying to prevent them from getting to you. So I'm very happy that you were able to clear that right.
One thing that rarely do I get involved in are issues around grading of anything. That's not just, I'm not going to get involved in grading type issues or anything like that.
That's great. Any closing remarks so far as students? Any motivation, stay in college, do good, that you want to share? Yes.
Yeah, so, one of the reasons for me to be at Wake Tech, and I think one of the things I love about being particularly at a community college. So I've been a president of 3 community colleges and the state system of community colleges. But, to be here is one of the things I think that's very important, and you realize this when you get to the later part of your career, like I am, is that there are a couple of things that are really important. One is community, and the other is being around people who inspire you, and that's the wonderful thing about a community college, because, first, we are part of a community, and that's something, and if you look at what my job is with the college, we often say we're our community's college. So while this is a community that has many universities, it's kind of built around higher ed in a lot of ways. This is a higher ed center. We're the only college that was built for specifically this community. We are Wake County's college in terms of how we're built, what we do. That's what drives a lot of the stuff I do externally, because we're expected to be Wake County's college. But it's also neat in that we are part of a community that you can kind of get your arms around, you feel a part of. And even though we're 6 campuses and technically the biggest college in North Carolina in terms of the number of people we serve, I think we're at our best when we do everything we can to keep ourselves kind of small, to kind of keep that community feel. And so that's something but being at a community college is important to me for that reason. The other reason is, I think that when you're younger, someone once wrote, a guy named David Brooks said, when you're younger, you worry about what's on your resume, But as you get older, you're worried more about what your eulogy is going to say. There's the resume virtues versus the eulogy virtues. And, so a lot of times, people when they're thinking about the climb up, but you get to a certain place and you kind of realize that not everything about that is important, And to me, what's really important that I've seen that can get undervalued is surrounding yourself with inspiration, how you are what inspires you. That's really what drives passion, right? Is when you feel a passion for something, you're inspired. It's because you're around something that kind of speaks to you in a different way. And that's to me, I know it sounds like I may be playing to the community college student crowd, but that's what community college students do for me. Right. I have been most inspired in my life by community college students to watch how they strive, to see some who have just overcome the most amazing obstacles to achieve and to achieve not just for themselves, but for their families. And to me, it's that inspiration around being around, faculty and staff who are here because of their love for the students, and students who are just, so inspiring. Community college students are not entitled people. Sometimes people will say, they'll talk about, college students act all entitled. Not here. This is a place where, people are here for a purpose, and when they're here, they inspire the rest of us. And that's why I love being at Wake Tech.
It's great. So I do once again want to commend you for all your initiatives. I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about, you do have a podcast as well.
I do. Right. I'm getting ready to record it right after this.
Okay. So if students, you want to listen or hear more about Dr. Ross has got his own podcast, do you want to?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's called We Are Wake Tech.
Okay.
And you can also pick up all the previous podcasts. And so we try to pick a topic a month. This month is about, we just opened what is perhaps the best automotive training center in the country, called the Hendricks Center for Automotive Excellence. So Dave Faber, who's the Dean of Transportation, will be on this month's podcast, but you can go back and review all the others. The other thing I give a plug for is every month I do a student forum, a staff forum, and a faculty forum. And, sometimes the student forum there's not as many students there, and we'd love to, but we have it every month, whether there's, 20 students or 2 students. So, sign up for that. I'm trying to do them hybrid now, so you can be in person and connect virtually, whichever you prefer. So we probably will slow down a little bit as we get to June, July. But we may, but we'll pick up and have a student forum every month. And rotating campuses as we are now, which we haven't been able to do during COVID.
Good. So I usually close with, where can students find you? But you've already told us exactly how they can find you. Get on the forum.
The forum is the best way.
Perfect.
And it's a great opportunity just to dialogue about anything that's on students' mind.
Sounds great. Dr. Ross,
Chris,
it's been my pleasure.
No, thank you. Appreciate all you're doing for us.
Thank you. Thanks again. It was a pleasure talking to Dr. Ross. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Students, get on Dr. Ross's forum. Any questions you can put on there. You can have your one-on-one that you've been requested for. Thanks again.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah. See you.